Mr. Kapinskis.
Here.
Ms. Kachuba.
Here.
Ms. Tremblay.
Here.
Ms. Woody.
Here.
Mr. Neese.
Here. All right, for announcements, declaration of public personal interest, I have one. The Virginia State and Local Government Conflict of Interest Act pursuant to paragraph B.1 of Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112 and subsection H of Virginia Code Section 2.2-3115 allows elected members of school boards who are also retired employees of a school system or family members of school system employees to discuss and vote on the budget of a school system in which they have a personal interest. The law requires that these school board members publicly declare this interest and indicate for the record that they can participate in transactions concerning the budget fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. I make that declaration for this meeting in regards to the school board's discussion and action on the 2024-2025 budget because my wife is an employee of the City of Point Head Public Schools and is therefore a member of a group, occupation, or profession that is affected by the budget.
I make that declaration for this meeting in regard to the school board's discussion and action on the 2024-2025 budget, because my wife is an employee of the City of Colonial Heights Public Schools and therefore a member of a group, occupation, or profession that is affected by the budget.
All right, any other announcements? Do I have a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
Make a motion that we adopt the agenda. Second.
Mr. Kapinskis.
Yes.
Ms. Kachuba.
Yes.
Ms. Tremblay.
Yes.
Ms. Woody.
Yes.
Mr. Neese.
Yes. Okay, so we'll move on to the work session and discuss the superintendent's proposed 2024-2025 budget.
Good morning. So we have a few visitors here and they have a couple of roles that we'd like for them to take care of, I guess. So we're gonna start with Kenny, and he and Troy are gonna talk about the switchgear and what implications that may have. So just wanna take a couple minutes so that y'all can be informed about that. So Kenny and Troy, I wanna take that.
The latest on the switchgear for the high school, on Monday, the 18th, we had a site meeting with contractors. All of the switchgear stuff, material for the main service to the building is here. And they're gonna begin, well, they've already started doing preliminary, everything they can do, so they shut the power down. We're gonna kill the power to the high school on the 3rd of June. That'll give these guys time to do what they have to do, install them, and they're asking for a 4-week shutdown or less, so it may come in quicker. I don't know how fast these guys can do what they got to do. Switchgear for the gymnasium side has been pushed, as of yesterday, it's been pushed to August the 21st. So we will not have that switchgear equipment on site. It's possible that it may show up early, but that's kind of a wish that may not come true.
So installation of that would likely be either Christmas or next summer, correct?
That's what I'm being told. I've asked them to give me some type of construction schedule or plan, and I'm still waiting on that to tell us when they're gonna do that. And then we may get some of it on site and may not have it, all of it here. So they'll have to go through and inventory everything. The other equipment that we've already got is in a warehouse. They've actually put their hands on every piece of it. So they say we've got everything.
The Dominion Power side of it is, they're on track. They're just waiting to get the piece of it.
We shut down on the 3rd and talking to Mr. Murhout, the plan is he's gonna try to re-energize the service on the other side of the building as quick as he can. So we will have partial power on the gymnasium and the auditorium. We will probably, we probably will not have lights in the new section of the building because most of that is coming off 480 volts. So it's gonna be sporadic all over the building. You're either gonna have lights or you're gonna have receptacles. But the air conditioning and all will be shut down, except for the auditorium, hopefully.
The other thing we're doing is we've asked Kenny to start working on getting a meeting with the electrical contractor and the general contractor in Dominion. We just want everybody in the room to talk through this and see if there's anything that comes up, but it's a pretty good plan to pull this piece off, most of it over the summer, and then the other piece will have to be extended a little bit. We'll do that at a time where it wouldn't be disruptive to the school system.
Any activities being disrupted? And typically not too much goes on.
So not too much in the summer, Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, so we, one thing we're looking at doing is, shifting the, senior portraits, so typically the Monday and Tuesday after, school gets out, and so that would be right when power gets out, but the power's off, and there's, I mean, as much as fun as it would be to have pictures without air conditioning, it'd be rough. So, we'll probably, Gerald's already been talking to, the Candy Color folks, and so probably, or Life Touch folks, so we'll probably move that, to that, the Thursday and Friday, of that last week of school, because we really won't have, we'll probably use the auditorium stage. So that'll work for us. June is a really good time, because really there isn't much that's happening, but we will need to, work on there's the gym floor over the summer, which is a big project. Really not something you can do during the school, just it's a big restriction on. So probably look at maybe in July. Kenny and I have talked some about the July date for that. We probably should be okay. Our sports still really don't get rolling until end of July, August, I think. So we should be okay with that. We have utilized the testing and other tools if necessary. We should be okay. June should be optimal. We're not having to move much.
What about, I think my daughter's dance company is doing their recital there. I'm not exactly sure the dates, is that gonna affect any dance recitals that come in Renton, auditorium?
I'm not sure. I'll have to check with Gerald on the dates, and we'll look at that. So, we'll definitely figure out the time for that. If we're in July, we should be fine, right, Dave?
Well, I know most of them end like in late May, some early June. So I thought ours, I just texted the dance teacher just to see. I know she said something with Gerald, but I thought it was like the first week in June.
That would not be ideal.
Right, that's what I
Yes,
was, because otherwise she's gonna need to make other arrangements or something.
yeah.
And it's possible if they get to re-energize that side of the building, once they cut the main leaves on this side. You probably won't be within a few days, you will probably have lights and air conditioning in the auditorium.
I just know for something that big and getting that late, it's gonna be really hard to find another venue.
Well, they're gonna need to have rooms for dressing and stuff too, so.
Yeah,
I
I wouldn't
just
be
texted
comfortable
June
having somebody in
3rd
here if
date.
it's shut down.
Is when she booked it with Gerald.
June 30th, you said?
June 3rd
June
through the
30th.
8th, just between all their
Okay.
rehearsals, and then their actual show is the 7th and 8th.
I would say that in my opinion, they probably need to make arrangements for something, because they're talking a complete building shutdown, and if the other switchgear does show up, they're gonna try to push that project along too, so.
If the middle school is available, is that an option for it?
Yeah, I would think so. Okay. If I can speak on behalf of another.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure I don't think it holds as many people, but Kenny, I don't know what the difference in capacity is in the auditorium, but,
I couldn't pull a number off my head, but I'd say it's probably half.
We'll work that out. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, let me know as soon as possible so I can let her know.
Yep.
Thank you.
Lisa, did you have any questions about that? Good? Good. Okay. Anything else? No good? All right, thank you, Kenny. All right, next we have Kristen Crowder and Mike Nelson. I asked them to join us today. They are gonna present at the board meeting just briefly. If we need them to, I can just roll through it at the board meeting, but we had talked about the possibility of adding an associate's degree option for our students, high school students. And they've done extensive research to compare Brightpoint and Richard Land. And I thought this would be a good time for them to kind of quickly walk through that very long process and tell you what their recommendation is and why, and then answer any questions y'all may have.
Yeah, well, thank you, and really appreciate the time, and really just before I get into it, it's, doing this really ties into, kind of vision piece, and I think it's important to connect to that, always be thinking about that, like, we wanna have students that graduate from Glen High School, that walk off that stage with a diploma, that they can either do two things. One, they can enter into a competitive job field with quality, high-paying, meaningful work, or they can attend if their academics are strong, to go to any top-tier four-year school. So a lot of doing this, by creating this that allows for students to earn their associates while in high school, allow them to do that. There are many jobs where if you have an associate, you can enter into that job, and it's a bit of, higher paying or meaningful work than not having that. So kind of to kind of frame this. So we've looked at, or Ms. Crowder's done just a yeoman's job, a tremendous amount of work in talking to, meeting with people from Bright Point and Richard Bland and gathering this data. So her work on this project is essential. So and so what we found is that Richard Bland strongly advocates for the associates program, but they really have a lot that goes in this direction. Bright Point is less invested in that program, to put it mildly, and they are more our relationship with them and how they're encouraging that relationship is more in sort of the CTE tech credentialing area, and we're actually going to build a way to have more transportation, get more kids there to do some of our concurrent enrollment. Right? That's not really part of this discussion, but just to let you know. So basically we worked with them and talked with them. The Richard Bland was much more a proponent of this. And there's, to do this, though, to put it in real terms, think about a high school student. They have to earn 60 college credits before they graduate from high school. That is a tall task. That is a lot to do, right? So it's very challenging. It's challenging for an adult to earn an associate's degree from Richard Bland. So it is. So the schedule, and you hope we have some sample schedules provided.
So in your folder, you have a summary sheet, and then you have 2 agenda items that are in the board packet. And one is a timeline with some sample schedules.
Yeah, and I apologize, so I'm jumping around, but so population is showing up. As you can see from the sample schedules, and there are different ways to, and there are more variations in this, right? So these are just two pathways to get to this. There could be others, and so it's a packed schedule. It requires students to complete some things as an 8th grader to be on this track. It requires some summer school. It does require and a commitment because you think about it, like we're asking juniors in high school to do collegiate level work, and that's not going to be true for every student. But I would say this: last year we added through some fortunate hiring, we added some personnel that had master's degrees that could teach dual enrollment classes. That's opened the door to a lot more students who take those courses than we had with AP classes. I'm not sliding AP classes, but by having that happen, we're opening doors to students, and they're seeing that there's more opportunity in dual enrollment classes, college level classes. There's a different level. The nature of the conversation, the course, the quality of the instruction, all these pieces are elevated. The expectations, the critical thinking pieces, there's so many of those components which really enhance a student's education. And so I share that to say that while this is a challenging road for students to take, it is, as we add staff, we add to a lot of students are more willing to take that home. And so they're becoming excited about it. And even if we have students that don't quite complete this pathway, I mean, okay, I didn't get to my associates, but let's say I ended up with 45 college credits. Well, that's pretty good, right? So I graduated from high school with that. So we will have students that maybe don't complete the program. We understand that. I mean, there's some students who will just be like, hey, I like Western civilization. I just take that one dual enrollment class. We're going to have students like that. We'll have some that will complete the program. And it's obviously there's a cost associated with it. There is some, in full disclosure, how this works will require students to take online, some virtual learning from Richard Bland. And I don't know if you remember, years ago, for like sociology and psychology as dual courses, we have adjuncts that would come to the school, the same thing in Prince George, same thing in a lot of places. They don't send adjuncts to the school anymore, it's all like virtual learning. So, which of course is easier and cheaper for that, and they basically charge them. It's a major thing, right? So, but it's still great. You know, and virtual learning of a college course is hard. And that's, you know, so I think what we have to do as we move towards this, there's gonna be some work on the back end, right? Counselors, there's gonna be work on building instructional practices to get students more ready to take on this challenge. But it's pretty exciting to think that I could finish high school and I could walk across that stage and I've already earned my associates. Potentially 2 years of college taken care of. And if you look at the cost that this would be for us, and the cost could increase over time, you look at that cost, I think we had 30 students that completed this. And think of the cost that the school division is taking on for this to happen, and they're earning that. I mean, what a tremendous thing. They did that, and you know, I don't want to look at things as always a product, right? Because I think the instructional piece is always critically important, right? Instruction trumps everything. But at the end of the day, if they're successful and can do this, I mean, we have so many students that have really challenged home situations, there's supportive education, there's financial difficulties, but the doors that go are pretty phenomenal. So, you know, not everyone is guaranteed though. I mean, you go down this path, it's gonna be a hard class, you might not get through it, but we'll support that. And Richard Bland is just terrific, to come back to what I started. Richard Bland is they're easy to work with, they communicate well with us. There are many other schools that use them for the associates program. It's a real gem to have here for us. And so they're very supportive. They provide a lot of help and assistance to the students. And we already have some dual enrollment courses that are through. So that's, I guess that's my like really long elevator.
Can I add to that, the classes that you approved last year have been just wildly successful. And we even have, normally 10th graders are not allowed to take dual enrollment, but they allowed us to, with Mr. Nelson's approval, if they were really advanced 10th graders, we could get his endorsement, and they were very successful in those classes. And so they got kind of a jump start in getting college credit even as a 10th grader. So that's why some of those have, you know, some 10th graders are on those sample schedules in dual enrollment class. So it is aggressive to get, you know, the associate's degree, but just getting close to it is, I think, just such a win. And getting those credits for those students for free that are with our support is huge. And when I look back, you know, 5 years ago, kids were graduating with a few credits. And now, right now, already this year, a lot of kids are graduating with, you know, 15, 20 credits already this year because of what y'all did last year. And then with what we're presenting now, it'll be just huge.
And I approach also is looking at things, sort of putting myself in the role of the nerdy student that I was, thinking about like, wow, if I could take these classes, I'd be so different things to learn about. I mean, it's really like and you know, we have, it's that sort of that childlike wonder. Even teenagers have that. Going into these classes that really get them excited and enthused about things that they even didn't know was possible.
How do these weight the GPA?
It would be weighted as a honors class. So it would be.
And yes,
Yep.
and they supplement, Richard Bland offers an advisor as well. So the student has their counselor here at the high school, and then Richard Bland has an advisor as well. So we would work together to make sure that the students meeting their high school requirements for graduation and their college. It's a lot to get them through. It's complicated. I mean, I have lived, breathed, and everything through this program just to fully make sure you understand it. Hopewell, I've been talking to the person there, and he says they really, really love it, and have really gotten into it over several years and have been really successful with it.
And there are trade-offs too, just so that if the student who's really into band, a student that's really into art, it's going to be more difficult for them to do those kinds of things. So we'll have to be more creative in that kind of scheduling and maybe look at, okay, is there another way to build in, a summer class? They could do that. It's something, maybe a ninth class during the school year, something like that. So I think that we just have to. So it isn't necessarily this two schedules that you see. That's not a straitjacket. It isn't like it's either this way or this way. It just gives you two views. Like here's the AP, I'm gonna max out everything I can take at Columbus High School versus here I'm going to not do that, but still get to do multiple classes. But like I said, there can be a lot of variation.
The AP credits, if they want to take AP classes and they take the AP test and do well, they count as well. And online classes, like Hopewell offers multiple online classes, even at Christmas time. But that would be a cost, of course, that the school board would take on. Now they're reasonable. They're only, a few $1,000s. If we pack them with students, then they're really reasonable. So that's an option as well for if we needed to face that with band students and things like that. And the more I get into it, the more I'm like, oh, this will work. We can add this on and this will work with, and so that's nice.
Thank you guys for all the work. When would this be introduced to parents at the middle school level so that they can?
They need to, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. The sooner they can start, like for instance, the exploring computer science at the middle school, the sooner they can take that, the better.
Yeah, because is that required?
No, but it's required for the associate's degree. They need to get the computer science class.
Okay.
And so, or the credit, so they can either get it through the class that they can take, or they can get it through the AP credit. The AP credit would be the easiest way, but they need to take that class to get there.
Yeah.
I had kind of the same question. What sort of coordination do you foresee being necessary to make sure that students are aware of that option so that they can hit the ground running?
For
and
right now,
if they choose it.
I have a timeline that I put in there. So I don't know exactly if we would going forward, how it would go, but for right now, I was thinking of myself going down to the middle school and talking to the students and the parents. But moving forward, I'm not sure how it would progress from there, and then having a nighttime meeting for parents here as well, and presenting to them what we were doing.
Yeah, as long as I just see them having to have a fuller understanding of it as early as possible.
Oh, yes.
Not me trying to.
There
scramble
needs
and-
to be planning, yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, it's does feel like we're definitely a little bit of a rush,
Right.
but some of the students have already been taking the classes, so they're already kind of in the plan, and it's kind of a bonus. Like, you didn't know this was coming, but hey, here's a present. It's an extra Christmas gift here.
And to your point, having so many hours available that they can get, even if they don't reach the 60, it's phenomenal.
And I really think, to your question about middle school, I think, at least some point during the 7th grade year, we need to have a coordinated effort to meet with parents and answer their questions and to make sure that they understand what their students need in the 8th grade and move forward to be able to access that.
It would be nice even at the 6th grade orientation, parents come in there wide-eyed, I'm going from elementary to middle. And I know it's a big jump in their brain, but to plant that seed and to say, we have 2 tracks available. Well, we have multiple, but, we have the CTE and we have this, associates, and the school picks up the cost. And so planting that seed for parents to be asking the right questions, because you don't know, so I think even as early as the 6th grade orientation, just to put it out there, and let them have an awareness and just kind of reiterate, because I feel like they're always, well, even with the specialty schools, sometimes it's like, oh, if I'd known that, and I think we're definitely doing a better job with that, letting people know, but I just, the typical student, 11th grade, end of the second semester, 11th grade, and they're like, what am I gonna do?
Right.
So this is such a golden opportunity, even with parents and things like that. So at one grade level, hopefully it'll stick and they'll,
But you're exactly right about the coordination, with the governor's schools, if you miss the boat on taking algebra as an 8th grader, there's no chance. So,
Yeah.
So I think we, probably, our best interest, I think we combine our efforts on all of that.
Mhm.
So, the whole range of what they can do when they get to the high school, what do they need to do in middle school to prepare, and they develop the tech center and CT pathways as well, so.
Since this is gonna be on the agenda on Tuesday, I think general discussion, I'd like to do more of the events
Yes.
because we'll have our audience, Ms. Pelter will be there. And so, but I think the purpose right now is just, are we comfortable with it in the budget?
And if you think of any other questions that need research between now and Tuesday, just shoot me an email. You get home, you think about anything, just let me know.
Thank you. This is really
Thank you all so
wonderful,
much.
really wonderful.
Thank you for allowing us to present this. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you all. Y'all ready to switch gears? Okay, so.
No pun intended.
I didn't even think about it, sorry. A little slow on that. So next, I'm gonna ask Troy and Melissa if they can do two things. One is to take a couple minutes and go back over the Evergreen salary study, where they are on that. And then the second part is, they're passing out a handout that just kind of goes over the budget adjustment summary, proposed budget adjustment summary. So I'm just gonna turn it over to y'all, let y'all do your thing.
I'll let Melissa run with some of the numbers. I'm gonna talk about the salary piece. And Casey, Melissa answers the questions regarding that, but I think we're all still waiting on the General Assembly and the governor kind of sign off on this additional funding, and that's part of the cover sheet that Melissa can cover too, but if she wants to run through the adjustments to the budget as of the last work session, this will give you an idea of what we think the actual budget will look like Tuesday night when you vote on it. And then there's some other pieces that will play out a little bit if the governor signs off on this additional funding.
Good morning. So, we are planning on at this point sticking with the balanced budget of $58,088,638. And the reason is we haven't, at least I haven't seen in the news where there's any agreement with the budget between the General Assembly and the governor. So we didn't want to project and then come up short. So we decided just to fully fund based on the governor's budget and stick with our current expenditures amount. And so there are some additional costs. Some of these we discussed last month, but I'll go over all of them. So first of all, the associate's degree program that you just heard from Mr. Nelson and his team, that's gonna cost the district $45,000. And so we put that amount in. The additional position costs from the last budget meeting, which was the addition of an instructional specialist as well as leaving the CTE director as an admin position, that was $125,000. The workers' comp from the last budget session we talked about was $20,000, and the ARGS additional seat was $9,000. So one of the things that we did find is that in order to stay competitive, we're gonna have to raise our salaries to 3% because we're seeing that across the board in other districts. And also in the governor's budget, they do, or excuse me, not the governor's budget, the General Assembly has proposed a 3% increase each year for a total 6% in the biennium. And so, we need to go ahead and fund the 3%. So the first one, to take our teachers from 1.8 to 3% will cost us $240,000. And then Troy's going to discuss a little bit more in detail about the market study. The other thing, we have applied for a grant through Nurture Now for some mental health services, and there's a matching component to that we will have to do that we're estimating right now is about $160,000. And so we've gone in and added that in case we get the grant. We have put in an application, but we won't hear until the end of June. And so we went ahead and put that in. The other thing, the workers' comp we discussed last month. The other thing is, you may have seen in your board packet a pretty significant change in the SPED budget because of the one-on-one aid and for this school year. And we are going in now and funding some additional amount for next year's students. So we don't have that shortfall. So we're adding $100,000 to cover cost of the one-on-one aids for our SPED students, which we've seen an increase. And so that's all the additional things that you will see in your budget. And we covered that. First of all, we discussed last month the VRS rate reduction that we waited to see if the General Assembly held to that. They did. The rest of it, we will have to take out of contingency. And so that's how we balanced it. And the amount out of contingency, thank you, Troy. We had $1,498,333. So with this about 580 reduction, it moves our contingency down to about $798,000. So we've, I guess, almost essentially cut it in half with these budget changes. So if you'll go down towards the bottom, we have received some estimates from the House Appropriation Committee that if the General Assembly budget is passed, our state revenue increase would be $1,113,653. So our first intention is to replace the contingency that we've worked away at, this $579,000. We'd like to take that money and fund the contingency back. Secondly, we talked about adjusting the teacher salary scale to those even increments. That would be our next plan. And then the balance of it, we would look at the unfunded requests that I believe Heidi's going to go over with you in a bit, and we could fund some of the unfunded requests. And so that's where we are as of now with the budget changes.
We also think that the cost for this HVAC replacement, like I said, is going to be significantly less than the $4 million budget. So that's what we're putting out. We're getting some bids from A&E firms on designing this thing. And once we lock down on that, then we can figure out what the equipment is going to cost and kind of what the turnkey project will be for that. But we think there's going to be some savings there, that money can also be used towards these unfunded capital pieces too, instead of having it out of the general fund. Heidi, do you want to talk about that piece now? You want me to go to salaries?
You want to just go to salaries?
This is 10 years salaries.
Okay. So just to kind of backtrack a little bit from where we were last time, is we had the presentation from Evergreen, and they were kind of plotting us in that 75th percentile. But that number was kind of a mixture of all the other divisions. So we went and I think you also wanted us to go back and weight it a little heavier towards Chesterfield to kind of see where we were with them, because that's kind of what we do with teachers a little bit. With also keeping in mind what Prince George and Dinwiddie and the others, so that we're not really out of whack with those by focusing a little bit on Chesterfield. So we did that, and we went through it and we reclassified a number of positions to kind of get them into the market. So, some of our positions moved up a little bit. Most of them moved up to be competitive. So we kind of got everybody in the right seat on the bus, and so we could have that comparison. Then what we had to do with that is, I don't know, let me make sure that I'm walked through the handouts too. So it's probably a good time to just look at the basic structure. If you look at the one that's labeled proposed pay plan, I think y'all will have that. This is what's really nice about moving in this direction and getting a real structured, visible, defined pay plan. So that the top piece of that is going to be your administrative groups, and that's A1 through A7. That goes up through the assistant superintendents from the A1 group. And it's going to be 5% grade progression between each of those levels. And going to the assistant superintendent levels, a 10% increase. The step progression for the 30 steps is going to be a 1.6% progression every step. The classified group is going to be 1 through 20, and that's going to be a 5.5% progression between each of those grade levels. And the step progression is going to be 1.8% when you look at the 30-step plan. The two sheets behind it are going to be which positions are classified within those particular groupings. So you can look at A1 and that will list the positions that are in that group, and A2, A3, and so forth. And that is kind of where we made some realignments. Same thing with the sheet behind it, which is the classified group. It lists from C1 to C20 and which positions fall within there. That's kind of what was being compared with the other districts and their classifications and what they're paying. And there was some movement in there to make sure that we were competitive within the market. But where the rubber hits the road in this thing is, this is nice, but you have to go back to your people where they currently are and what you're paying them, and where they land in all of this new thing, and you have to select an option. So we felt with the administrative group, there's a lot of new administrators here. There's only a handful of people who have kind of been in that classification a long time. So we felt the best way to address that was going to be put them on this better scale and put them at the closest step, and add one for next year. But when we looked at that, we wanted to make sure at a minimum everybody was at least getting the 3%. That was kind of the first thing. So if you're moving up to a better pay scale and a 3% increase places you where you need to be, you're not losing steps, or you're not losing for some people where they've been in that classification a long time, where they have been limited on steps and that they have been limited in the years that we didn't give any increases. We looked at that for some of those people, to make sure that placing them on this new scale was appropriate, and we addressed for some of them the number of years that they lost. So we did that on a few of them, and those people we tried to limit any increases to just the 10% or 11% range, to make sure that they weren't being placed on the scale somewhere where they were still 10 years behind, in their experience level of the division. So there's a few adjustments there, not many, and we still have to go over that with Heidi next week. We kind of finished all of this line by line review yesterday, but we have been working hard to go through that. There's 250 staff in this group, so going line by line and making sure that they're not losing, steps kind of thing, and where they land in experience wise just takes some time. And even within that, there are some unique circumstances. So we stuck with the closest step philosophy on the administrative side, tweaked a little bit if we had to. For the classified group, since they had a lot of people in there, and that's the majority of the 250 group, that's well over 200 people. There's certainly a number of people in that who've been with the division a long time. So we felt like going with the class year, how many years they've been in that particular classification, was a better starting point. So we made sure first that anybody in that analysis was getting at least a 3% increase. Because there were some of we were competitive in certain scales, so, people may have jumped way up in steps. And where they were being placed, based on how long they've been here, could have been like a 2% increase. So we made sure that everybody is at least getting 3% like we're doing for teachers and across the division. And then we looked at how many steps that anybody was losing. So there are some categories where some steps are still lost, but they're the employees that are getting the 20% increase or so. We felt like in this first look at it, and we can phase this in over some time, if you're getting a 20% or 25% increase because you're going on a much better scale, we probably have to bring you back down a few steps to make sure that that's better. Then take a look at it again next year and see if in that budget we can address some of those steps that were lost. So that has been the philosophy of the admin of the classified group and which option we selected with the Evergreen study. And I think at the end of the day, instead of a traditional 3% increase, we're putting in probably at least another $300,000 on top of that 3% increase to make all these little individual adjustments to people to get them closer to the market.
So I guess like some of them like non-teaching positions, I guess, that have been here, let's say 20 plus years. And because I've heard of a couple that have been here around 20 years, give or take. And then another person come in 2-3 years ago and they're like nipping at what they're making.
Right.
So this one employee that's been there 20 years or so, are they gonna get up way up where they should be?
I'd have to look at them individually. I mean, if we're giving them credit for their class years and they're not exceeding a 20% increase, then they would be getting some of those adjustments. It just depends on where.
So they could possibly be getting about a 20% increase.
Yeah.
And then said person maybe bumped up 1 or 2 steps, may only get at least a 3%.
Correct, unless the entire scale changed, but there is that analysis that we've done, more.
Well,
Because it's been individual that we have.
yeah, I mean, obviously, when you go from a starting salary of $12.50 to $15, that's a pretty significant change right there. And so, that's where we saw the biggest change in losing the biggest amounts of steps. Does that make sense? So, and then on top of that, you took a 18 step scale and then you bumped it out to 30. And so that's why we tried to go in and look. Anyone that was on a starting salary scale, of the $12.50, which is like some of our part-time hourly, the most steps that they're gonna lose is 6. And that seems like a lot, but they're also getting a 25% increase in their salary. As well, their earning potential, is now greatly exceeds what they would if we stayed on the current scale.
That makes sense.
And so, but then the problem that we're seeing is that because we had a $12.50 scale, the market around us, for these hourly people, nobody's starting under $14, $15 an hour. And so the newer people, to get them hired, were being placed not at step 1s or 2, but getting them, in at some of these higher steps. And that's why you're seeing that moving.
Yeah, I think that's where I guess that happens sometimes. You have somebody that started years ago making the $7.50 an hour, and they've climbed the steps over 5, 6, 7 years, and all of a sudden the wage is now $11, $12 an hour, and then you have a new hire that's right there at said employee.
Yeah.
That happened to me when I first started in the workforce, when it was back $4.50, and I worked there for a year, and it went up to $5.25, and then a buddy of mine got hired making the same thing I was. I've been there a year.
Yeah, we tried to look at, particularly in our food service, to look at those and make sure that, the people that, we'll go back and do it to make sure we did isolate it so that no person lost more than 6 steps in the classified categories where we had those big changes in the pay scale. But we'll go back again and just double check it and make sure that it seems reasonable within that class of where everybody got moved to.
It sounds like anyone losing steps is getting decent pay.
Yes.
Pay increase,
Yes,
And then they got the potential to make more.
Yes. yes.
We still would like to get everybody to that, year piece, but I think in the first budget year, the first phase of this, if you're going up 20%, it's a significant cost to the division because there's so many people.
Yeah.
We have to draw the line somewhere, but it bothers me to see that too. Because I think you have that, you want that differentiation based on years of service to make sure we're comparing adequately to somebody in Chesterfield who's at a certain level over there based on years of experience. So we'll go back Monday and take a look at that. We wanted to thoroughly go through this with Heidi. We chatted with her for a few minutes yesterday, but we had a few other things going on at the end of the day that took our attention.
The other thing I do want to say is I told Troy, in looking at food service is this drastically increases our food service program costs. And, I would anticipate with this hourly wage adjustment that we're going to continue to take a loss on the food service program. So we will have to, kick in the funds to cover the shortcomings as we've always done, right? But that also may be a reason for us to phase it in, take a look next year, see if we can go back and make up those steps next year as we see what the funding is, or, however you all want to do it. But I did tell Troy, we need to go back and relook at the budget of the food service and see, because they're supposed to be a self-supporting function.
I guess do we still get the lunches and stuff for free, or do we pay for that, or says the government?
Well, we pay all the cost of the food service. The government reimburses us. But, as we increase our payroll costs, if the amount we get from the government doesn't change, then
Yeah.
your expenses are more than, and then we can look at what we charge for some a la carte items, where kids actually make choice and purchase.
Just saying, when's the last time we went up on price on those? Because I know my grocery bill over the last year is almost doubled.
We did recently go up a little bit. I think Aaron adjusted some of the snacks a little bit because of the cost. He was losing money, so.
Yeah, I was
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, with the cost of food, we're seeing some pretty big changes, so in the food service program, but I just, did want to point out, when you have those scales that started under, that we're at a starting point of what our current minimum wage requirement is, which is $12.50, and you're going to 15, that's a big change. And when we stayed at the $15, because just from what I was reading, I feel like there's some strong push to potentially change the minimum wage to the $15, but the market is certainly driving $15 right now.
That's all businesses are
Yeah.
struggling with that right now.
Yeah, and the governor said just let the market, at least from what I remember reading, he said just let the market drive it, where I think the General Assembly wanted to put something, in writing or whatever, so we did start with the 15, but it's gonna shoot our costs up. I think we looked probably, wasn't like $79,000 or $80,000 in salaries for food
Hopefully the
service.
government, the Fed's coming back and increase the reimbursement rates based on food costs now. Sort of the way. We'll work with Heidi next week on trying to do the last pieces of this, and then, we're gonna figure out how to message this and make sure everybody understands what changes.
Any questions? I think the only other ask I have is if we can document what our principles were, just so that it's very clear in the principle. Like I know you guys have all done that, but thinking through that, but just so that we have that in writing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We have those discussions there, how to defend this in essence, and we weren't like picking and choosing. We tried to stick with as much structure as we could. The decisions we made to increase some steps, reduce steps, and it's a little bit, I don't want to say it's too arbitrary, but we trying to have some principles guide us into, a little document.
Thank you.
Really appreciate the detailed work here.
Yes. They've done a ton
Tremendous.
of work and
Thank
they're
you for the
grateful. I feel like,
explanations.
I feel like it's in a really, really great place.
I'm
Yeah.
excited for our staff.
Yeah, I am too. All right, so the last piece that I have for this morning, unless you'll have other things, is you have two additional handouts in the back of your folder. One is, these are the unfunded requests, or they are the unfunded requests. The first handout is personnel and the second is capital. So I just want to run through those real quick. So as we think about where we are right now with the proposed budget and where the funding is, basically, we've added some things in to take up a good bit of the contingency fund or a lot of it, but it sounds like we have potential to have quite a bit more funding. So I think these are things that, what I hope we can do is kind of go through these, and then maybe if we do get some of that additional funding, we can go back and consider some of these, but I just wanted you to have these on your radar. So, the first one, I'm just starting on the personnel, Lakeview translator, and I added a column on the right, so the column on the right is my notes for you. So we proposed a division level interpreter and translator. North asked to change their school counselor from 11 months to 12 months. So sort of the justification here is currently North and Lakeview both have principal and an AP. Lakeview's school counselor is 10 month, North is 11 month. I don't feel like we can really justify doing the 12 month for North. Having been at North, I feel like the job can get done with the personnel they have currently. I'm gonna roll on through, but if y'all want me to slow down, just tell me slow down. For North, requested a math Title I para, and in our discussions, we wanted to see what the Title I or the federal allocation is for our title programs. And if we get an increase, consider adding an additional math para over there. Telsing asked for an additional teacher for K-5. We have evaluated enrollment, and right now, there's not a justified need for that, but we do every week in the summer look at enrollment numbers. Who's home, who's going, and what the need is. Same thing for the special ed teacher. Right now, today, their staffing numbers are okay, but we all know that special ed staffing and student enrollment can change over the summer, so we'll certainly keep an eye on that. The high school asked for their gifted coordinator to be moved from a 10-month to a 12-month position. And I don't know if my justification here for my notes here makes sense to you, but basically, I think we have two different things there. I think we have a gifted coordinator that's a 10-month job, and I think they have additional things they ask her to do. And so I always think about it like if that person were to decide to leave the division and go somewhere else, the next person we hire, what are we hiring them for? We're hiring them for the 10-month gifted coordinator. So to me, it's two different things. And so my recommendation is to keep the 10-month plus 35 days as it is. Food service, that will continue to be evaluated, those staffing levels. There was a request for a stipend for communications and public relations for a technology person. And I kind of wanted to put this on hold until, as you may recall, we, in the budget, proposed that we split the technology director into Director of Innovative Learning and IT director. And once we see how all of that falls out and how those responsibilities go, we may bring this back, but for right now, we're just seeing where we land. Transportation floater positions, when Troy and I talked about this, I mean, they have trouble even get just regular drivers right now, but we'll continue to look at this. And then same thing with full-time routing specialists. They have a part-time person in there now that's been super helpful, and we'll just continue to evaluate those staffing levels. Any questions on the personnel pieces?
Not on the existing personnel pieces, but this brings to mind a conversation that I had a couple of weeks ago about transition coordination. What did you
Mr.
find out about that?
Polskamp is doing that at the high school. I asked Mr. Nelson who was responsible for that,
Okay,
and he said he's coordinating that.
okay, and is it at the same level that just to fill everybody else, and I didn't realize until fairly recently that we didn't have the transition coordinator who retired in 2020. I wasn't sure. There was some discussion at recent CIAC meeting that those services are kind of up in the air right now, but that is.
So Mr. Polskamp is handling the coordination of that. You know, if the level of service is not what it needs to be, I just need to know that.
Yeah, was that a dedicated role before, or was it a stipend on top of?
No, so it was a position, but she wasn't doing just that.
Okay.
She was teaching a lot of some of the courses she was teaching were similar to what like Nikki Duncan teaches.
Right. Okay.
So,
And that was just an additional.
yes, she kind of did a little bit of that on part-time role.
So did that position disappear or?
No, it's a special ed teacher position.
You're talking about Janet?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, because I had worked with her, so I know she was dedicated to and did, and so Dan, does he have a regular caseload?
He does.
And then he's a coordinator.
Yes.
And,
Well, they've assigned that, but he has 2 blocks a day. He teaches 2 blocks, and he has 2 blocks a day for coordination.
I think the transition, oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, I'd like to see, kind of where we are with the coordination and the effectiveness of it and who our partners are. I know Janet really worked with a lot of community partnerships and things like that, and I just wonder how much time Dan would have to devote to that. Not that he couldn't do it, certainly, but she was very integral, in working with her with Family Resource. She was very knowledgeable, but I think a lot of it was just being out in the community and just the connections that she
I
had.
can follow up with Christine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the perception among parents at the CIAC meeting seemed to be that we didn't have the services we had in 2020. And I don't want to be one of those things that gets lost in the fog of the pandemic. We're still trying to claw our way back from it.
Yeah.
So in the budget, we did approve a sped lead that would serve as the transition coordinator. Yeah, and,
It's not the transition coordinator.
oh, I'm sorry, that's what they put in the
Okay,
justification.
I didn't think that's what that was.
Yeah, okay, and that was specifically for Dan to only teach, I thought, Heidi, you correct me if I'm wrong, teach 2 classes and then
For the arrangement.
compensate. Mhm. Because, you have to give them a planning period, so in essence, what we're doing is paying for his planning period in order to coordinate the sped needs there.
Right, any other personnel questions? Okay, so the unfunded capital requests, the first one is just some collaborative desks at the middle school, and Ms. Pelter just indicated that this was a low priority item for her at this time. She felt like some of the other needs were higher. The ticket booth for the, over at the football field, I believe that's a project that's gonna be paid for out of the current athletic department funds. Concession stand, I think that's a future CIP item. Troy, can you speak to the water service line and athletic field restrooms? I can't remember exactly what that was. Oh, sorry.
New service, it's a 2-inch service line replacement. The field house has deteriorated and need of replacement. It's a summer project for 2024.
What was we didn't fund that, but is that something that we need, how critical was that? I don't remember.
Kenny moved off. It has absolutely had to be done. Unless we can get with him and see if we have money this year. Or to do assembly funds come in. That's one of the first things we can give him a green light to work on. I'll talk to him.
And then the next few items are parking lot asphalt replacement. Kenny indicated that these were not top priority items, but Troy and I talked about if the HVAC for this building comes back lower than anticipated, that perhaps we can go back and pick these up.
Some of the, I've got a big concern with Cline Heights Middle School, stuff like this. We're gonna be possibly putting a new high school up in the not near future, but how long could it last? This could be Band-Aid the parking lot if there's any potholes or anything, rather than dump over $200,000 into a brand new parking lot if in a couple of years we may.
We can certainly look at it. I mean, Troy,
Yeah, I mean, I think those discussions moving forward about a potential new high schools, I think a lot of these pieces need to be discussed in relation to that and the timing of it. This is probably something that would need to be done and get us through another 5 years or 8 years or something.
That's what I needed, is it be all done or just kind of patched up?
We'll follow up on that after we have the discussions with others on the new high school.
the next item is the, intercom that runs between the main building and the tech center. That's a $260,000 amount, and that's something that Kenny indicated was a critical need, and that's gonna be taken out of the current year contingency funds. And then the next items are vehicles, so a maintenance grounds truck. Must have hit. I didn't realize. So just disregard the very last page, I'm sorry. So there's a 77 passenger bus and a 24 passenger bus. I just duplicated those on the last page. But those are things that, Troy, you want to speak to the bus pieces that we talked about?
Well, I met with JP and, we've upgraded our fleet periodically over time. There's still a couple vehicles that he would like to have on the replacement list, but he said that it's not absolutely necessary that we have to do it now. They're not in a condition where they're breaking down or being a problem, but based on age, we kind of, at some point, would like to move them out of the active fleet.
Questions on any of those, or anything we can answer or help you with?
So is it basically once the state money comes back, we'll have a conversation and prioritize these?
Yeah, I think so. I think that and final quote of where we are on the HVAC is important. And so I feel like we're in a good place, a place that's gonna seem favorable once the state has their final. Vote.
We may get a little bit with the city once they finally finish their June 2023 year piece.
Yeah.
Settle up.
Any other questions? Is there anything else that y'all feel like you need to see on the budget before Tuesday's meeting to be ready to vote on?
I think
Very thorough.
Melissa Troy answered my questions about the increases on the percentage. I just want to make sure that some of the ones that have been here such a long time get placed where they should be placed.
Exactly. I agree.
Thank you. All right, next board member superintendent comments. Just one thing, we had talked about April 16th, joint meeting with city council. They're still working out their date for their work session. It's not gonna be on April 16th. So I'll circle back with Mayor Kachuga and with you all around what the potential dates are for that.
Take the 16 April offer.
Yes.
I think it's gonna be May, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, any other?
Just I think I've touched on the meeting, the banner formation for the softball teams is going well. We have, I think, 8 banners up right now, and I think there's another 4 or 5 being printed, and 2 or 3 that are on the fence of picking up one. So that's going well for the teams, and bringing them good fundraising money for them, so for their future needs, wants, and projects.
That's great.
Anything else? Motion for adjournment? Second?
All in favor?
All right, thank you all.